Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. She's helping lead the fight to pass police reform in the House. Today, she laid out just what is at stake as Congress considers this bill.
If this had been a law last year, George Floyd would be alive because chokeholds would be banned. Breonna Taylor would be alive because no-knock warrants for drugs would be banned. Tamir Rice would have graduated high school this May because the officer that killed him, had been fired from a nearby department, and he lied on his application.
Congresswoman Karen Bass of California joins us now. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. That last issue that you brought up about the testimony, about a police officer who lied about having been fired, there's no national database for that. If a police officer gets fired from a department, they can go work somewhere else. There's no obvious way to find out about what happened.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm glad you just had the chief on, because I was having a discussion with him yesterday, and he said it's very common. He said that officers, bad officers, problematic officers, move from city to city. And if you lie, you know, and if the department that hires you is not really diligent, they might not know. So there should be a national registry. You should be able to Google the person's name, get into the national registry, and see whether or not the person had a history of abuse, a history of instability, etc.
We heard some remarkably moving testimony. We played a little at the top of the show from the brother of George Floyd, who talked about making his brother's death a call for change in this country. Talk to me about what the tone was of that testimony, because out in the streets, the tone has been very tense. How was this testimony received by members of the committee?
Oh, I think everyone was moved by it. I mean, it was very powerful for him to be there. And, you know, and I really appreciate his presence. I mean, literally, he laid his brother to rest yesterday, and he came and testified today. And he was there all day long, listening to, you know, and answering questions. It was a very moving moment. And there was a woman also who had lost her brother. It was a different circumstance. But I think that everybody felt their grief, felt their pain, and I think that it moved everyone in the room.
I noticed that Republicans in today's hearing did not spend a lot of time posturing or arguing against your specific proposals, the ones that you and your colleagues have laid out. Is there something shifting? Are the boundaries of what is possible in Washington shifting?
Yes, I came away very encouraged from the hearing, frankly, and knowing that the White House has reached out over in the Senate and they're kind of over there scrambling to put something together. What we're doing is definitely more comprehensive. But the idea that my Republican colleagues pretty much spent the whole day talking about rioting and defunding the police, and very little attention to the bill. And as a matter of fact, some of them made positive references to the bill. So I feel like we're in a good place. I'm ready to get started. I'm ready to reach out to them. And I've already made a couple of phone calls, and a couple of them have called me. So I'm definitely encouraged after the hearing today.
Just a few weeks ago, a lynching bill that the House passed was stopped because Senator Rand Paul is concerned that people who engage in racist activity might get swept up in a lynching bill in case they were just assaulting someone on the basis of a racist act as opposed to killing them. Right. I mean, because we wouldn't want anybody getting swept up in a law just because they're racist who assaults people. But the point is, we seem to have leapfrogged that. We actually seem to be, the country, including some of your Republican colleagues in the Senate, have all said things that are not in keeping with what the president's been talking about in the last few days, but are in keeping with laws that might actually change policing in this country.
Absolutely. And, you know, his rationale behind why he held up the bill is just ridiculous, because a lynching is a murder. And so the idea that, well, maybe somebody didn't really mean to kill anyone. But, you know, understand that the reason why the lynching piece is in this bill, the history of lynching in the United States involved law enforcement. And what happened to George Floyd? To me, that was a lynching. What happened to Ahmaud Arbery? That was a lynching. That was a common thing that happened, where you would have somebody who was either a law enforcement officer or somebody who was a wannabe. And you remember one of the guys that killed Ahmed was a former law enforcement officer. But there's been a relationship historically. That was the reason why. It is shameful. It is 2020. And the idea that we're still talking about this, do you realize black people were marching over 100 years ago talking about lynching? And we still can't get this done? But I'm positive about the bill, though. I am. I came away today very positive.
Congresswoman, I'm glad for that, because it did sound that way, and I sort of wanted to get your sense of it to see if you came away with the same feeling. Let us hope. Congresswoman Karen Bass, always good to see you. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.